Stan the Man Lee, comic book legend and king of superhero movie cameos.
Stan Lee?
I love cameos.
In collaboration with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, he co-created some of modern pop culture's most iconic superheroes. Even though he's not the sole figure behind Marvel's most recognizable characters, Stan is mostly known as the face of Marvel Comics. Because of that, the name Stan Lee became enough of a marketing tool to sell any product. Just place the name on a piece of merchandise or media, and voila. This strategy was heavily used when Lee, along with Arthur Lieberman and Jill Champion,
It's pronounced Gil Champion, you stupid fucking bitch,
founded the media production company POW Entertainment Inc. in 2001. Almost every major POW Entertainment production had Stan Lee's name right up there in the title, even though he sometimes had very little involvement in the projects. For example, in 2006 they released a TV movie for the Sci-Fi Channel called Stan Lee's Lightspeed, even though apparently Stan isn't one of the writers, nor the director, nor a producer on the project. Frankly, I still have no idea what his part in the making of this film was, since it looks terrible, and I refuse to watch it.
Skip it up and that.
But for this video, I want to focus on two specific POW Entertainment productions that seem to have unfulfilled ambitions. I'm talking about Mosaic and the Condor, the two straight-to-DVD feature-length animated projects under the Stan Lee Presents banner. Both films had their television premiere in March 2007 on Cartoon Network's Toonami block. The Condor was a movie I once watched as a kid on DVD, and I got interested in revisiting it for a video. And when I got to the film's wiki page, I was surprised to read that it takes place in the same world as this other movie, Mosaic, which got me excited at this potential interconnected universe that I had no idea existed. Before diving deep into both films, let's run through what each of them were about while keeping spoilers to a minimum, starting with the Condor, since apparently it's chronologically the first. The film follows skateboarder Tony Valdez, the son of two research scientists in the field of robotics. After his parents discovered that their business partner Nigel was running illegal human testing, they're killed by mind-controlled assassins sent by Nigel's costumed villain partner. When Tony arrives at the crash site, he's jumped by the same mind-controlled subjects who proceed to break his legs, crippling him. But with the help of his friend Sami, and through the usage of her nanotechnology, Tony not only regains his ability to walk, but also develops superhuman strength and agility. Tony ends up picking up the mantle the Condor, and uses his new abilities to become a superhero! In Mosaic, we follow high school student Maggie Nelson, whose father is an Interpol agent investigating a break-in and murder at a museum. After Maggie experiences an accident involving a combination of a lightning storm, a pet chameleon, and an ancient runestone, she gains the power of shapeshifting. That's not how any of this works, but okay. Maggie then meets a mysterious shape-shifting man named Mosaic, who's part of a long-forgotten race of people that evolved from chameleons, and together they go on a mission to save her now-kidnapped father, as well as stop an ancient evil. After watching both films, I had a hard time catching clues to their shared universe. The only thing in common was that they had the same opening sequence for their credits. Outside of that, there wasn't any MCU movie-type cameo or Easter eggs that I could find, except of course for a Stan Lee cameo.
Stanley, I need a favor.
He shows up in both films, though not sure if he's supposed to be portraying two different characters or he's the same one in both.
Thank you, Mr. Condor.
I wanted to know more about the production behind both of them, but info was limited. I did, however, manage to find a helpful link in the Condor's Wikipedia sources, and even though the site was no longer available, I managed to use the Wayback Machine to view it. It was an interview with Stan Lee by superherohype.com. In the interview, Stan Lee states that his role in the films were coming up with the basic concepts for the characters and story, then later working with a scriptwriter where he sort of collaborates with them, in the sense that after he writes it, Stan goes over it, edits it together, until he sees that it's ready for production. Other than that, the interview never mentioned the films sharing the same universe. I personally feel like this was just a comment said for marketing purposes, and was probably stated by the studio long after their initial release, when they saw the success of the MCU. Instead, POW Entertainment intended these films to be testing grounds for the straight-to-DVD market, though no clue on whether or not they proved to be profitable. However, I did manage to get in contact with the director of the Condor, Stephen Gordon, via Instagram. I asked asked him a few questions and this is what he told me. The Condor and Mosaic do share the same universe in theory. Apparently, even he wasn't certain of the extent of their interconnectivity. Though both films had hints towards sequels, no scripts or concepts were ever made. According to Steven, the deal with Stan and the main production company funding the films, IDT Entertainment, fell through before any further projects began development. Sadly, both of these movies were received poorly, and it's not hard to see why. The first thing I noticed is that both films are very basic in their storytelling. They have the same classic comic book superhero origin formula, which I guess could have some nostalgic charm to it, but for me it came off as very generic. It's also unclear who the target audience is supposed to be for me. When I first saw The Condor as a kid, I thought I was watching a film meant for older teens due to some violent scenes and some sexual content.
What do you want me to sign?
Nice tits.
But now, as an adult, it feels far too cheesy for teenagers. I guess the target audience were kids that could be tricked into thinking they're watching something more mature than it actually is. I only saw Mosaic later as an adult, so I don't have the same nostalgic factor at play here.
No problem, Mr. Bullwraith.
Oh!
I'll be in my office during lunch hour.
There are just some things a student shouldn't know about her teachers.
I also feel that these films tried to stand out from their peers by having superheroes from more underrepresented groups, with The Condor having a Latino superhero and Mosaic having a female superhero.
Isn't it traditionally a part played by a man?
Insert mandatory woke media criticism here.
However, Mosaic falls a little flat in that regards for me. My reason is that there is this generic aspect with comic books where the writers try to create new diverse characters, but instead of giving them their own original superhero identity, they end up picking up the mantle of a previously established hero. I'm assuming that's because those mantles already proved to be popular, so it's a safer bet that these newer characters would be popular as well, in theory at least. Well, here you have an original story, an original universe with no previously established lore or characters, and yet they still do the passing on the mantle cliche. Sure, in Mosaic it's done more as a heartfelt tribute, but sadly I found it to be lame. My favorite character in both of these films has to be Tony's physical therapist named Dog.
Aloha, Tony. They call me Dog.
He's like a spiritual, gentle giant, and I love his chill vibe. Both films also included love triangles, which I did not care for at all. Also, like major age difference between those two. That being said, I did feel like the dialogue is pretty weak in both of these, which isn't helped by the voice acting. I won't stress too much on the acting since I honestly don't have much to say here other than it goes from decent to meh. And it's not like these are bad actors. For the lead character of Maggie in Mosaic, she's played by Anna Paquin, who's mostly known for playing Rogue from the X-Men movies, while The Condor stars that 70s show actor Wilmer Valderrama as Tony. But for Mosaic specifically, Maggie's character is an aspiring actress, so moments of weak voice acting makes it sound worse when the character herself is trying to deliver lines. The flow of the scenes and the narratives fell flat to me, from the way some characters were introduced to the transition from scene to scene. Now, I feel like I'm being too harsh on these films, so I want to jump into more positive aspects. I very much enjoyed the action in both of these films. I like the choreography of The Condor, specifically with the way Tony uses his upgraded skateboard gear in his fights. In Mosaic, the use of shapeshifting was a nice added flair that made the fights more creative, and some of the visual camera movement felt very dynamic, which was a pleasant surprise. I would say that in terms of atmosphere, Mosaic had better build-up in comparison to The Condor. Jumping into the animation, I think both of these films do a good job for straight-to-DVD films that aren't produced by major studios. There are some moments of awkward movement with some characters here and there. Other than that, the character animation looks fluid, and their movement feels solid and three-dimensional. The villain in The Condor does have some kind of laser or plasma beam that they use that doesn't look the best though, and in Mosaic, I feel like the shadows on the characters needed to be darker to properly portray the sense of mystery and thriller that they're going for, at least for the very beginning. I do like the effect they use for when the nanomechs in The Condor causes harm to the mind. It's a simple vibrating effect, but it's very effective. When it comes to character design, everything works fine, but the shapeshifters in Mosaic have a pretty generic base form look. However, I do like the design of Tony's superhero costume. He also looks like Pedro Pascal, which is kind of a bonus. Despite all my issues with these films, it's still clear that there's a lot of work and talent put into them, and they're straight-to-DVD movies. They're not aiming to be masterpieces. Anyways, that's all I have to say about these films. If you're new here, my name is Sami, and I make videos talking about movies, mainly lost or obscure, as well as videos where I make my own films. So, if you like what you saw and would like to see more, then make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.